Evening everyone. Thank you all for liking and following the group. Public Child Protection Wales has been developed because individually we support families. We get involved with the prison service and offender services, education, care system, social services, family courts, additional needs, policy and practice, and children's rights. So we do a lot of work individually trying to advocate for people, bring out their confidence, translating the formalities of society, because we're all vulnerable to the system. We might not think we are, but when we are faced with it, we are vulnerable to it. There's a lot of information we should have access to, and we haven't got it unless we got access to the internet, and we know what we're looking for. We're looking at actually what goes on in the country, and we're like, this workload is incredible, and it's getting near to impossible now to help and advise people. So this is why we've come together as a collective. We recognise these issues are not isolated incidents. They are widespread. So what that tells us is our policy makers are out of touch with reality. This is why we need to come forward now, and we need to bridge that gap, whatever way it takes. We need to come together now as a collective. We've got devolution of powers in our care services and education and health, and it's about time now we worked on those services to get the best that we can. What we find is there's a lot of wastage of money in this country. There's a lot of cuts to services, but there shouldn't be. There's money thrown at problems as well, when really we should be looking at the root of that problem and working on that. So these are the official aims of Public Child Protection Wales. We're going to promote a high standard of safeguarding to the children of Wales, raise awareness of exploitation and abuse. We're going to campaign to ensure a wholesome approach to all aspects of education, ensuring parental and carer involvement remains at the heart of all developments. We're going to challenge the Welsh Government and local authority policies which fail to safeguard. We will fight for compulsory sexual safeguarding of children and compulsory in-depth CSA, CSE and HSB training for all working with children and vulnerable people. CSA is child sex abuse, CSE is child sexual exploitation, and HSB is harmful sexual behaviour. That's a hidden crime when it goes undetected for many, many years, and it doesn't come out until the damage is done. And to be honest with you, nothing ever changes. So that's something we really need to work on there. We need to put more things in place for these children. Everybody needs to be aware of what's going on. And we're going to promote safer families and services. We're going to fight for additional investment into children and young people services. And we're going to give the children and people of Wales a voice. We think the policy makers are out of touch with the real people. And yes, they are. Rome wasn't built in a day. We can't solve everything. We can't solve everyone's problems, but we're going to try. We're going to try and target these widespread issues. These issues are not isolated issues, okay? There's a lot of failings in our services, and it's having a detrimental impact on our children. And we are seeing that result then as they come into adults. You can't fix a broken adult, okay? But we can protect the child. This is how we invest in the future, by investing in the children, and that's what we feel passionate about, and that's what we need to work on together. And obviously we can't do it without your support. So I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for liking, following and sharing. Together we can make a better, safer Wales. Alfred Kinsey, zoologist turned sexologist. That's what this education is based on. Alfred Kinsey, he was known as a god, the god of sex and sex education. He founded the Institute for Sex Research. Also from him came the Kinsey Institute. From there was Seekers. There's a Channel 4 documentary called Secret History, Kinsey's Paedophiles. You'll also see he's written many peer-reviewed papers. He's written a book, Sexual Behaviour in the Human Male. Much of his research is not ethical, but his research was used to generalize across the population. He was also investigated by the FBI and Interpol, and I'll tell you why. Right away through the war, there was a German soldier who used to abuse children, used to rape children. He raped up to 600 children, used to write to Alfred Kinsey and tell him all about this. How they discovered this was because he murdered a 10-year-old girl, and the police had discovered that he'd been writing to Alfred Kinsey. It later transpired that Kinsey had been paying paedophiles for this data. A lot of it came from fathers abusing their daughters. This is well documented. You need to look at this book, Sexual Behaviour in the Human Male, but get a bucket because this stuff is real. Well, anyway, this US soldier, I forget his name, the FBI and Interpol wanted these diaries off Kinsey. Kinsey turned around and told them, I'd rather burn them before I give them to you. So this was a massive crime in Germany. It was all over the papers. He raped 600 kids. It was like crime of the century. There wasn't a single article in America. Well, anyway, because Kinsey wouldn't hand over the diaries, the result of that was he got off with the murder of that 10-year-old girl, and he was eventually done for the rape of 20 children, which is just a small proportion of the 600. So that's what we're kind of dealing with here with Alfred Kinsey. That's his research. So we'll take a look at it.
Green's notes on the time it had taken him to masturbate the children to multiple orgasms.
The average interval between the first and second climaxes ranged from less than 10 seconds to 30 minutes or more. Even the youngest males, as young as 5 months in age, are capable of such repeated reactions.
The table suggested that some children, including a 4-year-old boy, had been masturbated over a 24-hour period. In his book, and based primarily on Green's information, Kinsey claimed that children could, with the assistance of an experienced adult, enjoy sexual activity from the moment they were born.
I do apologise for that. I know it's not very pleasant to see, but this is the truth. I want to note here as well that his research has been debunked. It's been debunked by psychiatrists, child psychiatrists, biochemistry debunks it all. There are so many great, wonderful doctors out there fighting this. One I'll mention is Dr. Judith Reisman. Please look into her. She has been fighting this for over 40 years. She was sued by the Playboy Mansion for defamation of character of Kinsey. They obviously lost that lawsuit because it's not defamation of character. Everything here is fact. It's all documented. It's published in books. It's published in peer-reviewed papers. There's even stuff on the Kinsey Institute.
We have a whole chapter here in which children have been tortured for this so-called scientific data. And this is the calculations of those abuse data into tables to promote this as scientific to the world. An assessment of these data suggests that at minimum 317, at maximum 1,200 and some boys were being sexually raped around the clock using stopwatches.
I now want to draw your attention to a close associate of Kinsey. His name is Wardell Pomeroy. He published papers with Kinsey. He supported a lot of incest. He's also a former president of SECAS. SECAS is what essentially writes the sex education now. I just want to quote something from him. And this is from Dr. Miriam Grossman's book. And I will speak about Dr. Miriam Grossman as well as another wonderful woman, child and adolescent psychiatrist. She's written over 200 peer-reviewed papers. Her books are incredible. The one I'm looking at now is called You're Teaching My Child What. Why she started her campaign was because the amount of children coming into her practice as a result of sex education and the dangers within it. So it's really important you look up Miriam Grossman, you read her books, because like she explains a lot about biochemistry, the psychiatry, attachment, and also how females develop differently to males, the dangers because they're periods, they're more prone to infections. You can learn a lot from Miriam. She travels all around the world. So what she'll do, she'll come to your country, she'll look at your curriculum, she'll pull it out and she'll do a presentation on it. So back to Wardle, this is a quote of his. He's associate of Alfred Kinsey and he became president of SECAS. And he says, in father-daughter incest, the daughter's age makes all the difference in the world. The older she is, the likelier it is that the experience will be a positive one. The best sort of incest of all, surprisingly enough, is that between a son and a mother who is really educating him sexually and who then encourages him to go out with girls. So that is the thinking behind this. So SECAS, Sexuality, Information and Education Council of the United States. SECAS was founded by Margaret Mary Calderon in 1964. She's also director of Planned Parenthood, which is another partner of UNESCO. The United Nations actually didn't want anything to do with SECAS and the education until UNESCO got involved. There's problems in all these areas anyway, these big organisations. Child trafficking all across them, haven't we? So that's something to bear in mind now as we progress.
To keep people out of the offices of doctors and therapists. I'm going to demonstrate today how the curricula and websites produced by the sex education industry make my job more difficult. I know that that is a strong statement to make, but the priority of groups such as Planned Parenthood and SECAS, which is the Sexuality, Information and Education Council of the U.S., you may not have heard of it, but it is one of the flagship organizations for comprehensive sex education in this country. country, the priority of those groups is not sexual health. It is sexual freedom. The sex ed industry remains true to its origins in the sexual revolution. The vision of that revolution 50 years ago is the vision of the sex industry today. The goal is for students to be open to just about any type of sexual activity. Children are told that sexuality extends from cradle to grave, and that from cradle to grave, sexual expression is a human right. A human right, students are told, that no one can infringe on, not parents, teachers, doctors, or even the law. Early sexual activity with multiple partners is assumed. High-risk behaviors are normalized, and an attitude of openness and adventure is celebrated. But these, of course, are the very behaviors that fuel the epidemics of genital infections, unwanted pregnancies, abortion, and emotional distress.
For the sake of this video, I'm going to go to this 2009 UNESCO document just to show you that seekers do actually write UNESCO documents. So as you can see, acknowledgements, just before we get to the contents page here, this document was written by Unethical, Director of the International Education and Training at the Sexuality Information and Education Council of the United States, CCAS. So this document here is another UNESCO document. This one was published December 2009, just a few months later. Again, pretty much acknowledgements. This is co-authored by CCAS. This is very important. We're told this is a Welsh education. Something that we really need to think about here. Is this what we are about? Is this what we want in our curriculum? Whether it's co-constructed, part constructed, 10th constructed, these ideologies are filtering through. I don't think this is what the Welsh people are about. In actual fact, I don't think this is what anybody in the United Kingdom is really about. As you know, our government have accepted this education into our country. People can say, oh, this is historical, this has nothing to do with us now. But these ideologies have filtered through. A lot of people are looking into this forwards and thinks, oh, this looks really good, this looks really good. But we are coming in from behind and we are seeing what's been fed into the system and what's filtered through. So I just want to draw your attention to this wannabe political party from the 80s, the Paedophile Information Exchange. This is PI in action.
Yes, a child is able to recognise a pleasurable experience. He is able to recognise a pleasing emotional experience. He is able to express consent and to recognise that this is something he wishes to continue. And a responsible, caring paedophile it always refers to the wishes of the child.
Also from those documents, we see that the children's commissioners and things like that were all for this education. Well, I just want to point out that a member of PI later became a children's minister. That person almost also became a Speaker of the House of Commons. So I just want to show you that this thing is very much still active today. These worries and concerns are real. We also have the children's commissioner in Ireland who is very close friends with Peter Tatchell. Peter Tatchell celebrates the education in Ireland. He champions for it. It's called Educate and Celebrate. This is what Peter Tatchell has to say.
Famous filmmaker Derek Jarman, who sadly has died, he told me when he was about 50 that he had had sex with a young man when he was 9 years old. He said it was his choice. He said he wasn't pressured or manipulated. He said he had no regrets about that sexual experience. So my view is, that's what he's saying. It's his personal view as an adult, mature man looking back on his childhood. If he says that, who am I or you to dispute it? Now, I accept that most sex involving young people is abusive and wrong. His view is perhaps exceptional, but it's not a view that should be dismissed and denied. If an adult person looks back on an early sexual experience and says they consented to it, they were not pressured, they were not harmed, they have no regrets or complaints, I think we should do the honest thing and accept their viewpoint.
That's concerning, especially when you consider that he is one of the main voices to lose the parental opt-out. He's vocal about this. This is in mainstream media. This is something that he's not shy to admit. So this is something we all need to bear in mind. As for England, we have the diversity role models. Well, you need to look into these situations. You need to look into absolutely everything and the people behind it. And what we found with diversity role models, they were responsible for writing the ASDA Sex Education Pact. So from this, we find as well that the Safe Schools Alliance the UK picked up on this. And again, like us, they noticed some similarities between PI policies and this education. Throughout this video, I've tried to demonstrate history and bring it into the current times. And going back to the first video you've seen of PI, you would have noticed there was two men in that video. The man in the corner, his name is Tom O'Carroll. That was him when he was young. Would you like to see what he's got to say for himself now?
Tom O'Carroll argues he and other paedophiles should be allowed to have sex with children.
You keep saying, by the way, it's sex with children. It's not sex with children. It's sex, most people think, is sexual intercourse, penis in vagina, and a guy banging away until he gets orgasm. That's not what I mean by sex with children.
What are you talking about?
And I don't think we should talk in this sort of emotive fashion about sex with children.
What is a less emotive term?
Erotic contact with children.
And what would that involve?
Well, it might involve touching or masturbation.
In the warped view of the paedophile information exchange, the only harm caused by an adult having sex with a child occurs later, when the child is supposedly made to feel guilty about it.
If they were traumatised, they wouldn't have gone along.
You see, that's another lie that paedophiles spin. They say that the kids aren't traumatised.
No, wait a moment.
Believe me, they are traumatised, Tom.
Yes, but many years later, as a result of being told... Well, it matters because they would not have been traumatised but for being told that they had been abused.
So this is the point. You'd say that it's not the paedophile that's caused the abuse, it's the responsible authorities like the police and their parents.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So you don't accept that having sex with a child can cause any kind of...
Let me tell you, we're getting peculiarly hysterical. Many years later, when people are told that they have been abused and it keeps being rammed into them from the media all the time, then that is the feeling they come to get. They come to think, I must be traumatised because people keep telling me so.
Okay,
that's how it happened.
Can I put to you, there's something in your book. There's a section in your book where you describe the scenario of a little girl sitting on a man's knee.
Yes.
And you describe approvingly how sexual relations with that little girl can be, quote, negotiated by hints and signals, such as complimenting her on her knickers and testing her response.
Yeah.
And what would be the adequate response from that little girl, Tom?
Enthusiasm.
What would that constitute? How would the little girl show you enthusiasm for you wanting to have sex with her?
Let's move away from...
No. Let's stick to this issue.
Well, all right. Let's stick with the issue, but let me address it in my own way.
The little girl's sitting on your knee, and you've just told her, I like your knickers.
Let me address it in my own way.
What does that little girl do to indicate that she's willing to consent to have sex with you, Tom?
How does somebody indicate willingness to have consent to anything?
A little girl cannot possibly be a consenting partner in that kind of power relationship. She's sitting on your knee, for God's sake.
Yes, she can.
You're an adult.
Yes, she can.
Difficult to watch, I know. Let's cast our mind back to the World Health Organization document that wants children to be consenting to what feels good, listen to their body, as long as it's consensual partner. Please don't make the mistake of thinking that sexual abuse is always violent, because it's not. It very often is not. Please understand that everything throughout this video has not been our words or our interpretation. They are quotations. And bear in mind that this was simply just a brief history. These are the reasons why we cannot accept this education in our country, more specifically the institutional abuse. We need to act now to protect our children, and we need to be aware of everything that's going on. So as mentioned, some people are looking from ground, looking out into these documents, and everything seems fine. But when you take it from the back road, it's very important we take it from the back road. We can't afford to make mistakes like we've made before. The last time education legislation was changed was 20 years ago. Just 2 years ago, we were still operating under the World Health Organization 2010. This education is supposed to safeguard children. That means safeguarding from families and the institution. Now, where there's children, there are paedophiles, and we we never discover this until many years later. We cannot afford to keep making these mistakes. We cannot allow it. This is why we need to get rid of that legislation. We do not close avenues on these kids, and this is why it's important we are listened to. Our skills, our experience and our knowledge is brought to the forefront. We need a wholesome approach here, and we do not do that by closing doors on these children. We like to give a balanced view on everything, and we carry with us a 29-page document of convictions. These convictions are policy makers, lawmakers, they're in our council, they're in our school governors, they're teachers, they're members of the mayors, they are also members of charity. We cannot afford to keep making these mistakes. Not now, not ever. Things have to change with us. We're all surrounded by perpetrators of abuse. Every single one of us knows an abuser. We just don't know it. We cannot take this risk, especially when we know what ideologies have gone in it. This research is unethical. You can't possibly pick up on any element of this research when you know where it's come from. So I'd like to bring your attention to the Coca-Cola scientists and the tobacco lobbyist groups. These lobbyist groups do not know what's right for us. These lobbyist groups are not there to do what's in our best interest. They're there to do what interests them. We need to come together now, and I hope you'll stay tuned for our next video where we're going to fetch in the UNESCO and WHO documents. We're going to join them all together from start to finish. This cannot go ahead. We all need to come together. We need to lead by example in Wales. We can take a far better approach than this, far better. There are gaps in this education. There are gaps in our provision. There are dangers there already. We need to come together. We need to address them all together. And the only way we're dealing with this is if we all come together and we all start talking. And that has to start now. I'm going to give you an evidence-based summary of the UK and the Wales's connection to the global rollout of sex education. I'm going to start with this document here, and this is the sexuality education in Europe and Central Asia. This is an overview of 25 countries. In this document, the UK is referred to as a country, okay? Let's take a look inside. First of all, we'll go to page 8. Remarkable progress has been made in the European region in developing and integrating sexuality education curricula in formal school settings. In 20 of the 25 countries, there is currently a law, policy or strategy either requiring or supporting it. In about all but one country, the UK. Most of this development took place during the years 2000 to 2016. In March 2017, a legal change took place in the UK when it was decided to make sexuality education a statutory subject, which means it must be taught in all schools of the country and now also including the private ones. In 3 of the remaining 4 countries, some of the sexuality education has nevertheless been implemented or is being prepared. As a result, it can be concluded that school sexuality education is now the rule in the European region. This tells us that in March 2017 there were changes made in the UK, and that's when they decided they were going to join the global rollout of sex education. Let's have a look what else it has to say. The WHO BZGA, Standards for Sexuality Education in Europe 2010, was used extensively in making this progress. In 8 of the countries, it was used to inform politicians and other decision makers and to develop and adapt curricula. In 4 other countries, it was used only for the development or adoption of curriculum. And in 2 or more countries, it was used to inform politicians and decision makers only. So that tells us that WHO, the World Health Organization, BZGA, Standards for Sexuality Education in Europe 2010, that tells us that document was used to inform politicians and other decision makers. So that was a document they used to persuade everyone, basically. We will look into that in a minute, but let's just turn to page 174 and see what it's got to say about the UK. Here it says it became mandatory in schools in 2019. And sure it did. What we found last year in September was the sexual stimulation in 241 schools in England, and that was also part of the United Nations. Page 177. There is no significant opposition to sexuality education in the United Kingdom. In fact, The reverse is true. The statutory status for a comprehensive sexuality education programme had the support of 5 parliamentary select committees, the Children's Commissioner, the Chief Health Medical Officer and many others, as you can see there, guys. The UK, as we know it, has 4 devolved governments for education. Let's take a look at our most recent document published by our Welsh Government. This is the consultation report published on the 4th of December 2020. Take a look here. This is what our government has to say. Page 121. In 2017, the Welsh Government commissioned a sex and relationships expert panel to make recommendations on the future of sex and relationships education in Wales. Its report was published in January 2018 and concluded current law and guidance is outdated, provision under existing arrangements was limited, unrepresentative and inconsistent. So what exactly is this document that sealed the deal for us? This WHO BZGA, Standards for Sexuality Education in Europe. What is this document? Let's take a closer look, because it seems to have satisfied our politicians. It's even satisfied our children's commissioners. So we keep hearing sex education is age appropriate with regards to development and understanding. Yeah, we keep hearing that all the time. We've also discovered in this document that the kids have got sexual rights, and this sex education is based on a sexual and reproductive right approach. It also tells us here as well, although it's age appropriate, sexuality education begins at birth. And that is exactly what our government, well, the lobbyist groups or whoever made these decisions, that's what they signed us up for. Age appropriate sex education that they believe should begin from birth. We keep hearing as well that sexual rights is a right to information and education, guys, yeah? Well, let's take a look here at these sexual rights then, shall we? So it is the highest attainment standard of sexual health, including access to sexual and reproductive health care and services. Seek and receive, impart information related to sexuality, sexuality education, respect for body integrity, choose their partner, decide to be sexually active or not, consensual sexual relations, consensual marriage, decide whether or not and when to have children, and pursue a satisfying, safe and pleasurable sexual life. Yes, you did read that correct. You read that this is age appropriate and developmental sex education which should begin from birth. You'll also read other things in this document like how babies are sexual beings from birth. So you do need to look at this document yourselves, okay? Because once seen, can't unsee. We also seen about the sexual rights, how children have sexual rights. That was new to me as well until I came across these documents. They can choose their partner. They can decide whether to be sexually active or not. They can decide whether to have consensual sexual relations, because they're right to have consensual sexual relations. And they can pursue a satisfying, safe and pleasurable sexual life from birth. I'm now going to skim through the matrix, and if you look at the matrix at the top, it's got the age of the child, and we start from 0 to 4. We have columns, so we have information fed into the child, the skills the child will get from that information, and then finally the attitude the child develops towards it. I'm going to skim through it quickly. You can look at it yourself. This is a summary for you guys. Age 0 to 4. All body parts and their functions. Enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body, early childhood masturbation, talk about pleasurable and unpleasurable feelings in one's own body, express own needs and wishes for boundaries, for example in the context of playing doctor, say yes or no. The attitude that their own experience and expression of emotion is right. Body parts. Name body parts and their functions. You've probably heard that the correct terminology for body parts safeguards. Sometimes it does, but that's not entirely true. Children are not required to actually know about the scrotum, the vulva, or even the sensation of it. What we are looking at here is biology. And when you think about biology, you can cover all reproductive organs and everything in that. We think that everyone is confused between sex, safeguarding and biology. Now, biology is not an issue, but it seems to be an issue for our government because they've removed it from our curriculum full stop. So, other things you might have picked up on a lot was pleasurable feelings in the body, playing doctor. If you read the document, you'll see there were statements on playing doctors earlier before that. It was encouraging children to play doctors together. Yes or no feelings? 4-year-old. Know what feels right. Know that they are right. A 4-year-old? Does a 4-year-old know they're right? If you give a 3-year-old the wrong colour beaker, they're going to have a tantrum. Age 0 to 4. Good and bad experiences of your body. What feels good? Listen to your body. If the experience of feeling is not good, you do not always have to apply. Say yes and no. Express needs and wishes. Differentiate between good and bad secrets. Differentiate between public and private behaviour. Let me just remind you, yes, that was age 0 to 4, guys. And as you noticed, you do not always have to comply. If it doesn't feel good, you don't like it, you don't have to comply. Remember, 0 to 4. Differentiate between good and bad secrets. People seem to think this is a great idea. Children cannot differentiate between good and bad secrets. You want to safeguard a child, you tell them not to keep a secret. It's not on a child to keep a secret, okay? Abuse exists in secrecy. Age 4 to 6. Enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body. Early childhood masturbation. Appropriate sexual language. Sexual feelings, closeness, enjoyment, excitement. All part of human feelings. These should be positive feelings. They should not include coercion or harm. Use sexual language in a non-offensive way. Secret loves, first loves, infatuations and crushes. The attitude that their own experience and expression of emotion is right and important, valuing their own feelings. Masturbation again, age 4 to 6. Masturbation, enjoyment, excitement, positive experiences. This should be free from coercion or harm. Children simply don't know they're being coerced or harmed. They really don't know they're being harmed until years later. And even then, they keep it a secret. Speaking of secrets, secret loves. Secret loves, age 6 and under, and be able to use appropriate language in a non-offensive way. Appropriate sexual language in a non-offensive way. Age 4 to 6. Good and bad experiences of your body. What feels good? Listen to your body. If the experience is not good, you don't always have to comply. Abuse. There are some people who are not good. They pretend to be kind, but they are violent. The attitude that they have a choice. The attitude that my body belongs to me. Express needs and wishes. Still age 4 to 6, and we've got good and bad experiences of your body. Listen to your body. If it doesn't feel good, you don't have to comply. Don't have to comply. We're talking, this is a sex education document. This is a child age under 6. So we've got them as well being encouraged. My body, my choice. If it feels good, I should have a choice. If it doesn't feel good, go away. That's what these documents are telling these children. But then to cover it up and show that they are safeguarded from abuse, they will talk about violence in the context of abuse. Sexual abuse isn't always violent. Not in small children. Very rare is violent in small children. Okay? Especially interfamilial abuse, which is abuse at home, abuse in the family. Age 6 to 9. Love, being in love. Enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body. Masturbation or self-stimulation. Appropriate sexual language. Sexual intercourse. Use sexual language in a non-offensive way. An understanding of acceptable sex. Mutually consensual. Voluntary, equal, age-appropriate, context-appropriate and self-respecting. An acceptance that feelings of love are part of all emotions. The attitude that their own experience and expression of emotions is right and important. Express and communicate emotions, own wishes and needs. Secret loves, first loves, infatuations and crushes. As you can see, it didn't take long to escalate to sexual intercourse. That is age 6 to 9. The sexual intercourse must be consensual, mutual and voluntary. And it doesn't matter if it's with a secret love. I don't want to speak about that document anymore now, but I would like you all to read it for yourselves. I bet you've got lots of questions, haven't you? I bet you can't believe what you've seen. I bet you're all wondering how this has been happening. How is this possible? Why haven't the parents kicked off? They have. There's been many campaigns and they're still ongoing. Hands off our kids, let kids be kids, the School Gate campaign, Family Watch International, to name a few. Our teachers are not going to teach that, I hear you say. Well, no, as you know, it took a while for the UK to actually accept this education. So how are they going to pass it on to the parents? Well, that's where this young girl comes into it. This is UNESCO. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on UNESCO. I'm just going to show you the connection between us and them. Here statement 1.3, guys. Why do we need a revised version of the guidance? The first version of the guidance was published by UNESCO in 2009 in partnership with the Joint United Nations Programme on HIV and AIDS and the United Nations Population Fund, United Nations Children's Fund and the World Health Organization. Since its publication, the guidance has served as an evidence-informed educational resource that is globally applicable, easily adaptable to local context, and it's also been used as a tool to advocate for CSE for all children, adolescents and youth as an essential component in quality education in line with their human rights. UNESCO 2009. That suggests there's more. So this is CSE, Comprehensive Sexuality Education, RSE here, SRE in England. So this is a quality education, and UNESCO is partnered UNICEF and WHO, the World Health Organization. She is the rights-based approach. She is empowering children to exercise their rights, their children's rights, their human rights, their bodily rights, and their sexual rights. So this one is a lot kinder on the eye, okay? It's, like I said, it's beefed up with rights and it looks really good. We are going to go into it in detail for you, okay? Because obviously you need more trained than I on this one. But as I said, there are still problems with this, okay? So we do still have consent and things like that. We are told this is an evidence-based document. We're a devolved nation where our evidence should be Welsh-based, okay? Our policies are supposed to be for Welsh children. But let's just take a look at the evidence in this document. This evidence-based document that they're going to be using in Wales in our devolved government, in our devolved education, the education that's only for Welsh children, is this section provides evidence on the impact of sexuality education on primary outcomes, sexual behaviour and health on secondary outcomes, knowledge, attitudes and other non-health behavioural outcomes. The results are based primarily on the main conclusions of the two evidence reviews processed commissioned by UNESCO in 2008 and 2016. The 2008 evidence review is based on results from 87 studies conducted around the world and was carried out by Douglas Kirkby of Education, Training and Research Associates. The results are published by the original guidance UNESCO 2019. The 2016 evidence review is based on results from 22 rigorous systemic reviews and 77 randomized controlled trials in a broad range of countries and contexts, in which more than half were situated in low or middle income countries. The review was conducted by Paul Montgomery and Wendy Nur of Oxford University's Centre of Evidence-Based Intervention UK, and is referenced as UNESCO 2016 in this guidance. 87 studies on low or middle income countries. What they mean is a vast majority has been done in countries that haven't got no running water. They seem to believe that CSE is far more important than water. So let's go back to Wales now. Let's have a look in our document. As you can see here in the RSE draft, which was published in February 2019, page 4 tells us to refer to UNESCO, which is the global rollout. Now let's take a look at the most recent report published on the 4th of December 2020. So this is the consultation report. And as you can see here, page 134, the explanatory memorandum explains that these headings are derived from the UNESCO Technical Guidance for Sexuality Education, which has directly informed the curriculum for Wales Guidance for Curriculum Design and Implementation, published in January 2020. In addition to that, the Minister of Education had to respond to our petition. This was the response. RSE is part of a global rollout of sexuality education which is not appropriate for this country. The Minister's response to that is, I can confirm this claim is wholly inaccurate and false. She then goes on in paragraph 5 to say, statutory guidance for RSE is currently being co-constructed to ensure that learning is developmentally appropriate, drawn on a range of evidence and expertise such as the UNESCO International Technical Guidance. This document has been referred to during the co-construction phase. However, I would like to reassure you that decisions made about the content of RSE are being taken in Wales in collaboration with teachers who are making their own judgment in view of their extensive experience of the learner at different developmental stages. Different from being constructed by Welsh practitioners for Welsh children, isn't it? So we've come a long way from being told that this is a Welsh education to being told that what we are saying is misinformation. Then the Minister herself saying that this is wholly inaccurate and false, but then admitting a few paragraphs later that it's co-constructed. So we've got this far at a push. There's no denying the global connection there. And I hope you'll stay tuned, follow up on a series of videos that we're producing for you so you can see what exactly hides behind these documents. So guys, this is just a quick touch base really, because we haven't done a proper live in a while. We've been so busy. A lot has gone on over the past few weeks and we haven't had time to update you, have we? So I think we'll start with the presentations that we've been doing. We did a presentation in the Neon in Newport. I think that was a huge success. That was professionally recorded. We did then a demonstration up in Llandudno. We've had more demonstrations and presentations. We did another two up in North Wales. People are driving miles now to come and listen. What we put in these presentations is months and years and years. We put it all in a presentation for you. We put the references there, and then it's up to you guys then what you do with it. We've got another two presentations coming up this week. We've got one in the Victory Church in Cwmbran. So please come along, come and get some leaflets, get some raffle tickets, come and get some information, and let's just get everybody informed. From there then it's Llandudno on the 23rd. Again, we'll be doing a demonstration there. Come on guys, start bringing your family members with you now, right? It's time to really up our game. We've got our monthly demonstration. We'll be back at Cardiff on the 20th of August. I cannot stress this enough, okay? Now is the time. We will not be outside the Senedd. We will all be meeting outside the train station at 1 p.m, okay? We're not going to be traipsing around Cardiff or anything like that, so don't worry about that. For the 20th of August, I urge every man and their dog to be outside that train station. That could be a great opportunity for us, all right? It will only be a great opportunity if everyone is there. Obviously, we'll have the team there, okay? We'll have as much of the team there as possible. They will be working those crowds. There's nowhere more busy than the train station in Cardiff. You got people going to gigs, you got people going shopping, you got people going to work, you got people visiting friends. We really do need to work that platform, all right? And we'll also be having a demonstration. Now, if we can get the crowds there this time, with people live streaming off their phone, this could be the jewel in the crown, all right? And I will reveal more information on that as time goes on. But I urge as many of you as possible to attend these events. Not on your own, bring somebody with you. Now is the time, okay? So we've actually been quite successful since the Neon. We've cracked through into different groups now, different communities are coming forward. We are uniting. But when the movement grows, with that, the good people grow, yes, but then we also have people in between meddling and trying to cause trouble and things like that. I urge you all to do one thing. Keep your children in your heart and your head focused on the goal. Don't do a he said, she said. It is there designed for division. Divide and conquer. We're not about that. We're about uniting. We are the platform, we are the coalition that welcomes absolutely everyone. My personal life view is simple. Got two types of people on this planet. You got the human race and the human disgrace. There's only one split in society. You got adulthood and childhood. The adults look after the children. It's as simple as that, guys, okay? There's good and bad everywhere. But this is about uniting now, and uniting we are. And we know they're concerned because we've cracked through now to the Muslim community. And we know they are concerned because they did a meeting. Jeremy Miles did a meeting with the Muslim Council of Wales the other day. You know the score, they do the whole right-wing, left-wing thing. Ignore that, all right? This is not political. This is not religious. This is child protection, and it's staying child protection. If we all focused on child protection, we'd soon see world peace, okay? That's why they don't like us looking after our children. That's why they like us squabbling amongst ourselves, so we haven't got time to see what's going on behind closed doors. We can't do that anymore now. We have to change our approach. The children need us. The children need us more now than they will ever need us in their lives. An entire generation. We are almost at the end of a massive global agenda, but all is not lost. This is also a massive golden opportunity. This is the opportunity to change things for good, guys. We've seen lesson content rolling out across the UK, and people are saying, how is this happening? Who is delivering this stuff? Who is teaching this stuff? Well, what you've got to realize is it's everyday people delivering this stuff, because they are everyday people. Just their job role is a teacher, that's all. They don't know where this stuff comes from. They are doing what the frameworks tell them. Their only support really seems to be social media, where they group together and ask each other for advice. That's not good enough. That's why retraining them will ensure nothing like this can ever happen again. If we had robust training, teacher training and sexual safeguarding in our institutions, we wouldn't be having this discussion, because they would see what we see. They would know what we know. And that is why this training is really, really important, guys, right? The only way we can deliver this training is with money. Where do we get our money? We're going to get our money back from the court when we win, okay? Because we are going to win this. One way or another, we will win this, and we will make the UK the safest place in the world to raise children. We can't do it on our own. We all have to come together. We have to start inviting people now. You have to really start calling people out. Doing your Facebook posts is no good. You have to message people individually. It's as simple as that, right? You have to start calling people out. There is something called bystander apathy. It's a psychological thing, it is. People will just tend to get on with their lives expecting somebody else to sort it out. We cannot afford bystander apathy on this issue, all right? Do not think other people are already sorting it out. It's not going to work like that, all right? We are the smallest country in the UK, which is perfect. We can get around this country quicker than they can get around theirs, around the rest of the UK, right? We have to use that to our advantage. We have to open the borders as well. Everyone in the UK needs to realise this is not a Welsh fight. The 4 UK governments signed the same contract. We're in the same storm, we're just in different boats, right? In Wales, we don't sail boats. We're on rafts. Now, I strongly advise the rest of the UK to dump your boat because there's too much water getting in. The water's getting in and it's dragging you down, and down with that boat, there's children. Get off the boat, get on our raft. No water will pull us down. We keep battling, we keep battling, we keep battling, we keep getting back out there. We get washed up, we straighten our raft, we get straight back out there. This is a war against our children. It is happening. The opportunity to fight it properly is in Wales. That is why the UK must come together. That is why you guys have to come to Wales, all right? Because smashing this legislation here and forming a UK movement will ensure our children will never be subjected to this ever again, guys. It is vitally important, all right? We've sent out the teachers' questions with you guys, and that's been quite successful. The feedback we've had from that is there's been people from the local authority, from the, the Central South Wales Consortium. They're going to be training the teachers. The local authority, head of inclusion, the board of governors. What we're finding is nobody has read the Curriculum and Assessment Act. So nobody has actually read this legislation. So what we're dealing with here are a load of professionals that's just been given guidance, instruction, and fluffy words. They haven't even read the legislation. They don't even know what that legislation means for them, when in actual fact, this legislation is against them, not us, okay? The legislation is against the schools. The schools have to teach this. The schools have to do the whole school approach in every single subject across the curriculum, but then they have to enforce it on us as well. So the schools really are going to have the brunt of this. They're going to be getting it off the government if they don't deliver it. They're going to be getting it off us if we do deliver it. But we know that 68% of teachers don't like teaching sex education. That is fantastic, because from these teachers' questions now, we have this notice for you to give to the schools, right? We made the decision not to give it to you at the end of term simply because it's a loophole. It's our loophole. We don't want to give them 6 weeks to loop the loop, do we? No, we don't want to do that. So we will be publishing this notice on our website on the 1st of September. If you are a teacher in the 68%, this is your tool. This is your opportunity. This is the law on your side, all right? Parents, you take these notices to your schools, and what should happen is there should be an emergency meeting. An emergency meeting, board of governors. It should go straight to the local authority legal team. It's a legal document. It is quoting the legislation, all right? What the government want you to believe from the Curriculum and Assessment Act, they haven't actually done, all right? They've made a bit of a mistake. We have found our mistake, and this is what's coming out in this notice. So what we do need is a minimum of 22 people, the local authorities, a maximum of 1,500 people for each school. We're being contacted by different groups from all over the place. They're starting to give themselves names like concerned parents and all different things like that. That is perfect. Keep going, keep doing it. You have to start meeting each other every single week, all right? Because what's going to happen is there's going to be people out there that don't have the confidence. They need to see you. They need to see you grouping together. They need to see you working together. Because like I've said before, they might not come for 4 weeks, but that 5th week might be the time. But we are running out of time, all right? September is fast approaching. September is the deadline for this education for 3-year-olds, all right? The deadline for the comprehensive children isn't until 2025. I think they've extended it now to 2027. The little ones need us, all right? The little ones need us to get organised. We got to get organised now. We need to raise awareness. That is the most important thing. With an awareness will come the funds, all right? Get that team of 5 into that court. Get the team of 5 into the court. Get a massive sea of people outside the court. We do not want 5 people in the court with nobody knowing. The same thing will happen what happened in England. Nobody will know about it. Therefore, it will be a dead case. We need to put pressure on the courts. The little people need to stand up. There's 1 or 2 politicians speaking out now. Don't believe them. Don't believe a word that comes out of their mouths. The Conservatives in England, they signed a contract for this. The Conservatives in Wales, yeah, they voted against this. But when we wrote to them, when we had issued that letter of action to Jeremy Miles, before even telling the public, we emailed all 16. We asked all 16 to stand by their convictions and publicly support the People's Campaign. The best we got back was my colleague Laura Ann Jones, Shadow Education Secretary. Well, the thing is, that's not good enough, because Laura Ann Jones, she joined the Children and Young People's Education Committee. She joined that committee with Lynn Eagle and everyone. Then she stood up in the Senate, gave an almighty speech about how she was against this education. Now she's for it for her 9-year-old son. Okay? So she flip-flopped. We cannot trust politics. Politics got us in this mess. England, it was the Conservatives. Wales, it was the Labour Party with a Liberal Democrat education minister. Scotland is the SNP. This is not a political issue. This has been caused by politics. This is not a political process. There's been no opposition. There's been no meaningful discussion or debate, and they've gone against us on a consultation. We know this is an agenda. We cannot trust them. We will not trust them. If they offer us talks, we will be refusing. The time for talks were during the consultation process. The time for talks were in the 2 years on the run-up to us taking court action. Now we're just taking action. There is no room for negotiation. I will be contacting the new Children's Commissioner, and I will be explaining to her what I said to the last Children's Commissioner, and I will be following through on it. Unless they pull up their socks, we'll be going after them too, because the Children's Commissioner in Ireland is fully behind this. Educate and Celebrate, promoted by Peter Tatchell. I don't think these are the right type of people that should be having a say over our children's education. Most of them aren't parents themselves anyway, so what right have they got? I know this anxiety is high out there. Guys, please hold your horses. When we are quiet, you better bet your bottom dollar that we are absolutely snowed under. These presentations are really popular. They are really taking off. If you want us to come and deliver a presentation in your area, just give us a shout. We've got our own equipment now. We can do it outside if we want to. There is absolutely nothing stopping us. We can be there for you guys. It's really important now you guys get together, group together. You can do this. Us is the country. The country is the United Kingdom. The war is in Wales. The opportunity to fight is here. Use it and abuse it. We will never, ever, ever get this opportunity again. This really is the matter of life and death, really. The life of innocence or the death of innocence. It's down to us, guys. You cannot stand back and think we've got it covered. We cannot do it without you. There is only so much we can do. Guys, use your own ideas. Pull together. Ignore what people are saying, because beneath it all, we are human beings. We are responsible adults, and we're taking responsibility for our children. And if we focus on the children in our heart, end goal in our head, nothing will stand in our way. Absolutely nothing at all. The government are absolutely bricking it now. That's why they had that emergency meeting with the Muslim Council Wales. That was a kind of a mixed response there. More support for us than ever, really, because they know we're speaking the truth. And this is it, guys. We just need to drive this forward now. We can do this, right? Group together. Let's get the leaflets out there. Let's get the raffle tickets sold. Let's get some fundraising. Let's get that 100 grand. That 100 grand is our ticket into court, but it also covers training for the whole of the country and the teachers. This will never happen again, okay? This will never happen again, because we will upskill the teachers. Only good can come from this. We're in a dark place now, but only good will come of it. We will smash this. It might take a little bit of time and a little bit of work, but we will get there. 100% we will get there. We are going to win this. We are going to put Wales on the map. We're going to make history, and we're going to save every child in the UK. And I have absolutely no doubt about that at all. So I just want to thank everyone that's got in touch. Thank everyone for the emails. Everyone's asking what they can do. Group together, subscribe to the website, raise money, come and speak to us. Let's have meetings. Let's do it. Let's just network. Let's just get out there, get this done, all right? Now is the time. That clock is ticking. We haven't got much time. We're only going to get one shot of this. Let's make sure it's a whopper.